Waxy, golden, and delicious honey has been used for centuries to keep us healthy. Honeybees have been hard at work helping us improve the appearance of our skin, ease symptoms of a common cold, and pollinating some of our favorite crops. Peaches, blueberries, avocados, almonds, and even cotton are all at least partially pollinated by bees. But the world's honeybee population is rapidly declining. Bee territories have shrunk nearly 200 miles in North America and Europe. And over the last decade, beekeepers have lost 30% of their colonies, with some reporting losses of more than 90%. To find out more about what is happening in our hives, we met up with a Georgia beekeeper.
The first egg is going to be a male.
B.J. Weeks has been around bees since the 1960s and keeping them for a living since the 90s.
I see one mite, two mites.
He says there are a number of factors that affect a hive's health, and the biggest of these is actually rather small.
It's pretty much all tied into the mites, and the mites vector different viruses. The viruses can transfer from bee to bee, but the mites do it very efficiently. And so we try to control the mites to keep the mites down, as well as keeping the viruses under control. If the hives have constant warm and they don't go broodless, your mites are going to be a bigger problem because they reproduce in the brood.
At the University of Georgia Bee Lab, research professional Jennifer Berry has been focusing on honeybee health for nearly 20 years.
The number one reason our honeybees are dying in the United States or worldwide is due to an ectoparasite called varroa destructor. It evolved on the Asian honeybee, Apis cerana, and once it jumped from the Asian honeybee to our European honeybee, it changed bees and beekeeping lives forever.
And while they study the large impact mites and disease play on bee populations, she says there are a number of other factors.
There are other things, obviously, that come into play: pesticides, habitat deterioration, nutritional stress, and climate change. What we're seeing with climate change is the fact that the bees, and not just honeybees, but native bees as well, are out of sync with blooming plants.
Differences in the Earth's climate have caused plant species to bloom on average a half a day earlier each year. This puts the bees and plants further out of sync, risking not just pollination efforts, but food sources for the bees as well.
If the nectar's not there, their food source is gone. And if their food source is gone, they starve. Starvation is the number 2 reason why our bees die, here in the United States especially.
Plus, freezing temperatures at the wrong time can cause just as much damage.
As the temperatures warm, the ground's warming, then the trees begin to bloom, which activates the native bees and the honeybees. And then we had a frost, we had a killing freeze, knocking back all the bloom. And then some of our solitary bees, our native bees, aren't out yet because it isn't yet warm enough. So things are blooming, the bees aren't there, or the bees are there and the bloom's not there. So things are getting off sync.
And while the loss of crops due to harsh weather and natural disasters has a huge economic toll, the loss of bees would be substantially worse. Not having honey is the least of our problems. The bee population in the United States adds more than $15 billion in value to agricultural crops each year. So here's what we can do to help our pollinators. First off, planting native flowers or nectar-bearing trees can help local bees.
Always do your native flowers, because your native flowers are specific to our native bees, and they need our help.
And consider replacing the grass in your yard with clover or additional flower beds. But for beekeepers like BJ, they are constantly on guard to help protect our bees, because he knows just as well as anyone how crucial bees are not just to our planet, but to our lives.
So if we didn't have bees, we would have all the grains, but we would miss out on a lot of the vegetables and the fruits, the things that are sweet, that are desserts, that make life a little bit better.
So let's do what we can to help our pollinators, because without them, we may miss out on the sweeter things in life.